postponed decisions, people who had spent so long at the edge of things that the edge had become their habitat. She thought, I know you're there. She thought, I know what you want. She thought, I am not the person you were waiting for, not anymore. And 11 blocks north, in her apartment, the photograph sat on the bookshelf between two books, and the kitchen table was empty of the box, and the window showed the clean sky after the storm, and the city ran below it in its constant, unceasing entirety. 10,000 thresholds in every direction, and somewhere in the underground the turnstiles stood in their rows under the fluorescent light, the fair screens glowing their particular blue-white, the sensor lights flat and green and waiting, the whole careful architecture of the threshold patient as stone, patient as something that has always been there and knows it will always be there, doing what it does, waiting for the specific kind of person, waiting for the specific kind of night. The drain in the floor of the Delancey Street station accepted a thin trickle of groundwater and sent it down. The turnstile stood in its row. The beeping was very quiet, almost inaudible. Timed to nothing in particular, just idling, just maintaining readiness, the soft, steady pulse of a thing that has decided to wait, that has all the time there is, that loses nothing by waiting because waiting is simply more of what it already is. Somewhere in the city, someone was standing at the top of a staircase. They were looking down, they had a card in their hand and nowhere specific to be and a chest full of tomorrows, and the entrance breathed up at them with its mineral breath and its fluorescent warmth and its smell of old copper and electricity and the accumulated presence of every person who had ever stood exactly here, exactly in this posture, exactly in this quality of not quite deciding. The turnstile waited. It was very good at waiting. It had been waiting for longer than anyone could measure, and it would keep waiting, and the city would keep generating the specific kind of night and the specific kind of person, and at some point the configuration would be right again, and someone would descend, and the beeping would begin, and the screen would show them something specific to them, something drawn from the exact reservoir of their avoidance, and the pale shape would stand in the gap with its transit paper stillness, and the sentence would rise in the throat, and at the moment of maximum helplessness, at the precise centre of the willingness to surrender the self to the gate. Some of them would step back, would hold the card over the reader without tapping, would offer the silence, the deliberate uncompleted intention, would choose honestly, would climb back into the rain, and some of them wouldn't, and the gate would accept what it was given, with a soft click that sounded almost grateful, and the world on the other side would be slightly, specifically, permanently wrong. The drain processed its water. The fluorescent light hummed. The sensor lights were flat and green and waiting, and in the space between the second and third turnstile, approximately 18 inches of cold air held its shape in the warm underground dark, as it had held it for years, as it would hold it for years more, patient still, exactly as cold as it needed to be, waiting for the next one, always waiting for the next one. The next story is about to begin. Please relax and enjoy. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning the city into a watercolour of grey and black, bleeding at the edges. Maya stood barefoot on the cold kitchen tile at 2:47 a.m, her feet already numb, watching condensation crawl down the outside of a milk carton she didn't remember buying. The refrigerator door hung open, spilling its pale light across the linoleum in a wash that made everything look surgical, sterile, like the kitchen had become an examination room and she was the specimen. She wasn't hungry. She knew that much. Her stomach sat quiet and settled beneath her ribcage, making no demands. But here she was again, for the 4th night in a row, staring into the refrigerator's interior as if the answer to some unasked question lived between the leftover Thai food and the slowly rotting vegetables in the crisper drawer. The apartment hummed around her, the building's old bones settling, pipes ticking behind walls, and beneath it all the refrigerator's constant drone, a sound so familiar it had become like silence. The rain tapped against the kitchen window in patterns that almost sounded deliberate. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, pause, tap, 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 like someone trying to remember a song. Maya's reflection stared back at her from the chrome handle, her face warped and elongated, eyes too large, mouth a thin, worried line. She looked like a stranger. She looked tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Her apartment, a studio on the 4th floor of a building that had probably been elegant in the 1920s and was now just trying to avoid collapse, It always felt slightly wrong in small ways. The windows never quite closed all the way, letting in thin whistles of wind even in summer. The floorboards creaked in rooms she wasn't standing in. The bathroom door wouldn't stay closed unless you really wedged it. But the kitchen was the worst. The kitchen was always cold, even in August, even with the oven running. It held on to chill like it was storing it, saving it up for something. Maya had moved in 6 months ago after the divorce, taking the first place she could afford that wasn't her sister's couch or her mother's spare room. She'd been grateful just to have her own door to close, her own silence to fill however she wanted. But the silence had turned out to be heavier than she expected, and the door had started to feel less like privacy and more like containment. She reached into the fridge without looking, her hand finding the water pitcher on autopilot. The plastic was cold enough to sting. She poured half a glass, drank it standing there with the door still open, the refrigerator light making her shadow stretch long and thin across the kitchen floor. The water tasted like nothing. She set the glass in the sink and started to close the refrigerator door. The light stayed on. Not long. Just a second longer than it should have. The door was moving toward closed, the seal beginning to make contact, and the light should have cut off, but it held. One extra second of pale illumination, like the refrigerator was reluctant to let her go, like it wanted her to look just a moment longer. Maya stopped, pulled the door open again. The light shone normally, bright and steady. She closed it again, watching carefully this time. The light cut off exactly when it should have, the instant the seal met the frame. Normal. Fine. Nothing wrong. She stood in the dark kitchen, rain still tapping, and felt something cold that had nothing to do with the tile under her feet. The building creaked. Somewhere above her, someone's footsteps crossed a floor. The refrigerator hummed its constant song. Maya went back to bed and didn't sleep for 2 more hours. The next day was Saturday, which meant the laundromat and the grocery store and all the small tedious tasks that filled the margins of living alone. Maya moved through them with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd done them too many times, loading washers, comparing prices, making choices that didn't matter. At the grocery store, she stood in front of the refrigerated section for too long, staring at rows of identical milk cartons, and realised she couldn't remember what she'd come to buy. A woman reached past her for yogurt, murmuring an excuse me that barely registered. Maya grabbed milk she didn't need and moved on, her cart half empty and nothing in it adding up to an actual meal. She got home as the afternoon light was starting to fail, the sky still heavy with rain that hadn't quite decided to fall again yet. Her neighbour across the hall, Mrs. Rashid, was stepping out as Maya came up the stairs with her grocery bags. Mrs. Rashid was somewhere in her 70s, tiny and precise, always dressed like she was expecting important company, even though Maya had never seen anyone visit. She nodded at Maya with the kind of polite distance they'd maintained for 6 months. "The rain's coming back," Mrs. Rashid said, not quite looking at Maya's face. "I can feel it in my hip." "Probably," Maya agreed, shifting her bags. Mrs. Rashid's hand rested on her doorknob, but she didn't turn it. She stood there for a moment, her eyes moving to Maya's door and then away again. "You hear it too, don't you?" Maya's keys were in her hand, cold metal pressing into her palm. "Hear what?" "At night. The kitchen sounds." Mrs. Rashid's voice was very quiet, barely more than a whisper. "The opening and closing. I used to hear it in my place too before I learned." Something in Maya's chest tightened. "Learned what?" Mrs. Rashid finally looked at her directly, and her eyes were dark and serious. "Not to go looking for comfort in cold places. They remember when you do, they keep track." She pulled her door open. "Don't answer when it calls, dear. Nothing good comes from feeding what lives in the latches." The door closed before Maya could respond, the sound of multiple locks clicking into place following immediately. Maya stood in the hallway for a long moment, her grocery bags cutting lines into her palms, before she unlocked her own door and stepped inside. The apartment was darker than it should have been, all the natural light swallowed by the grey day outside. Maya put her groceries away methodically, not thinking about Mrs. Rashid's words, not thinking about anything, just placing items in their designated spots like, if she followed the pattern exactly, everything would be fine. Milk in the door, vegetables in the crisper, frozen dinners in the freezer. The refrigerator hummed its approval. She ate dinner on the couch watching a show she'd seen before, the television's glow the only light in the apartment. The rain started again around 7, harder this time, the kind that made the windows shudder. Maya tried to focus on the show but kept losing the thread of the plot, kept finding herself staring at the kitchen doorway, just a darker rectangle in the dark apartment, wondering if the refrigerator light was on. She checked. It wasn't. Of course it wasn't. The door was closed, everything was fine, she was being ridiculous, but at 1:23 a.m. she was standing in front of it again. She didn't remember getting up. She'd been lying in bed, listening to the rain, and then she was here, barefoot on the cold tile, her hand on the refrigerator handle. The chrome was ice cold against her palm, almost painful. She pulled the door open and the light flooded out, and she stood there scanning the shelves even though she'd just organised them, even though nothing had changed, even though she wasn't looking for anything. The hums seemed louder at night, deeper. It resonated through the floor, up through her feet, into her bones. Maya found herself breathing in time with it. In on the low throb, out on the slight rise, in again on the fall. The rhythm was almost soothing, almost like being rocked. She reached for the water pitcher again, the same nightly script, and when she started to close the door, the light held. 2 seconds this time, maybe 3. The door moving, the seal making contact, and the light staying on like something inside was watching, waiting to see if she'd notice. Maya's hand stopped on the handle, her breath caught in her throat. The light finally cut off, leaving her in darkness so complete it felt solid. She yanked the door open again. The light blazed. Everything looked normal, shelves of food, organised and ordinary, nothing moving, nothing wrong. But on the middle shelf, on the glass where condensation always gathered, there was a line of moisture that looked almost deliberate. A curve, then a straight line, then another curve. Like someone had tried to write something and stopped. Maya wiped it away with her finger. The moisture was ice cold and left her fingertip numb. She closed the refrigerator door carefully, watching the light the entire time. It cut off normally. She didn't go back to bed. She sat at her small kitchen table, the only piece of furniture in, the kitchen, and watched the refrigerator in the darkness. The rain hammered against the window. The building settled and creaked. The refrigerator hummed its endless song. And very quietly, so quietly she almost convinced herself she'd imagined it, she heard a click. Not from inside the refrigerator, from the door. From the latch itself, a soft metallic sound like something settling into place, even though the door hadn't moved. Maya sat at that table until the sky started to lighten, her body aching with tension, her eyes burning with sleeplessness. Nothing else happened. The refrigerator just hummed and the rain just fell and she just sat there, waiting for something she couldn't name. Sunday passed in a haze. Maya couldn't remember if she ate. She thought she might have showered but wasn't sure. The day existed outside her awareness, time moving around her while she stood still. She found herself in front of the refrigerator several times without remembering walking there. Found herself with the door open, staring at the shelves, her mind blank and floating. By nightfall, the rain had settled into a steady downpour that turned the street outside into a river. Maya's windows leaked, thin streams of water running down the inside of the glass, pooling on the sills. She put towels down and they soaked through in minutes. The whole apartment felt damp, the air heavy and cold, like the rain was seeping through the walls themselves. She tried to go to bed at a reasonable hour. She lasted until 2:15 a.m. The kitchen was waiting. She could feel it from the bed, could feel the refrigerator's hum through the walls, a vibration that called to something deep in her chest. She got up before she could talk herself out of it, before she could examine why she was doing this, and walked barefoot across the cold floor. The refrigerator door opened under her hand before she consciously decided to pull it. The light spilled out, and this time, Maya saw it clearly. In the chrome handle's warped reflection, behind her shoulder there was something standing. Not a person. Too thin for that, too vertical, like a shadow that had learned to stand on its own. It was there in the reflection, close enough to touch, but when Maya spun around, the kitchen was empty. Nothing but darkness and the distant glow from the street. She turned back to the refrigerator. The reflection showed her, alone, warped by the chrome's curve. Nothing behind her, nothing anywhere. But the condensation on the shelves had those lines again. More of them now, moisture gathering in deliberate patterns, loops and curves and straight lines, almost but not quite forming letters, almost but not quite spelling words. Maya leaned closer, her face inches from the cold glass, trying to make sense of the patterns. They shifted. As she watched, the condensation moved, droplets combining and separating, the lines reforming into new shapes. Writing and erasing, like someone practicing how to form words, like something learning to speak. Maya's breath fogged the glass. When it cleared, one of the moisture patterns looked almost like a letter. Maybe an S, maybe nothing. She reached out to touch it and the refrigerator light flickered. Just once. Just for a fraction of a second. But in that moment of darkness, Maya felt something in the kitchen with her. Not behind her like the reflection had suggested. Closer, right there in front of her, in the space between her face and the refrigerator's interior, something present and aware and hungry. The light came back on. Maya stumbled backward, her hip hitting the table hard enough to bruise. The refrigerator stood there innocently, its light steady, its shelves full of ordinary food that was slowly going bad. The hum continued, unchanged. Maya closed the door with shaking hands, and this time the light didn't linger. It cut off immediately, the kitchen plunging into darkness. She stood there breathing hard, her heart hammering against her ribs, and heard that sound again. Click. From the latch. From the door that was already closed. A soft metallic settling, like something locking into place, like something being secured, like something claiming what it had caught. Maya turned on every light in the apartment and didn't turn them off until the sun came up. Monday meant work, which meant pretending to be functional, which meant drinking enough coffee that her hands shook and her thoughts raced without ever arriving anywhere useful. Maya worked in medical billing from home, 8 hours a day of staring at claims and codes and numbers that determined whether people got help or got buried in debt. It was soul-crushing work that paid just enough to keep her soul partially intact. She couldn't focus. The numbers swam on her screen, rearranging themselves into patterns that looked like the condensation lines. Every time her computer hummed to life, it sounded like the refrigerator. Every time someone emailed her. The notification sound made her jump. At lunch, she opened the refrigerator to get the sandwich she'd made that morning. She didn't remember making it, but there it was, wrapped neatly, sitting on the shelf. The refrigerator light seemed brighter than usual, almost harsh, and Maya found herself squinting against it. She grabbed the sandwich quickly and closed the door. The light lingered. 5 full seconds this time, maybe more. The door closed, the seal made contact, and the light stayed on, bright enough that she could see it through the crack around the door, a thin line of illumination that shouldn't exist. Maya opened the door again, her sandwich forgotten. "What do you want?" she said out loud, her voice strange in the empty apartment. The refrigerator hummed. The light shone. On the middle shelf, condensation was gathering again, forming those lines, those almost letters. Maya watched as the moisture moved, drawn by some invisible force into specific patterns. A curve, a line, a curve, a line, over and over, writing and erasing. Her phone rang loud and jarring, and Maya nearly screamed. She stumbled away from the refrigerator, letting the door swing shut, and grabbed her phone from the counter. Her sister. She almost didn't answer, but the alternative was standing here staring at the refrigerator, and that felt more dangerous somehow. "Hey," Maya said, trying to sound normal. "You sound weird. Are you sick?" Her sister Lauren had never been one for small talk. "Just tired. The rain's been keeping me up." "It's October in Seattle, Maya. It's going to rain until June. You can't let it keep you up." Lauren's voice carried that edge of concern that Maya had been hearing for months, ever since the divorce. The edge that said, "I'm worried you're falling apart," without actually saying it. "Are you eating?" Maya looked at the refrigerator. The light was off now, the door properly closed, everything normal. "Yes." "Are you lying?" "I made a sandwich." "When?" Maya couldn't remember. "This morning." "Did you eat it?" The sandwich was still in her hand, still wrapped. "I'm about to." Lauren sighed, and Maya could picture her perfectly, sitting at her desk in her immaculate home office, phone tucked between shoulder and ear, probably colour-coding something. Lauren had always been the organised one, the one who had her life in neat rows, the one who'd looked at Maya's divorce with sympathetic horror, like she couldn't fathom how someone could fail so completely at something Lauren made look easy. "Come over for dinner," Lauren said. "Tonight. I'm making chicken, and you look like you need a real meal." "You can't see me." "I don't need to. I can hear it in your voice. You're doing that thing where you forget to be a person." Lauren's tone softened slightly. "Come on. Dave's working late. The kids would love to see you, and I'll send you home with leftovers. Real food, not whatever depressing bachelor nonsense you're eating." Maya wanted to say no. She wanted to stay here, to watch the refrigerator, to figure out what was happening. But the thought of spending another night alone in this apartment, waiting for 2 a.m., waiting for the kitchen to call her, made her chest feel tight. "Okay," she heard herself say. "What time?" She ate the sandwich mechanically while Lauren talked about her kids' soccer schedules and her husband's work drama. And when Maya finally hung up, the apartment felt quieter than before. Emptier. She looked at the refrigerator and it looked back, its chrome handle reflecting the grey light from the window, and Maya felt with absolute certainty that it was waiting for her. She left for Lauren's at 5, too early, but she couldn't stay in the apartment anymore. The refrigerator's hum followed her down the stairs, into the lobby, out onto the rain-soaked street. Or maybe that was just the city's ambient noise, the electrical buzz that lived in walls and wires and the bones of buildings. Maybe she was just losing her mind. Lauren's house was in Ballard, a perfect craftsman with a perfect yard and perfect children who did perfect things. Maya's nephew Max, 8 years old and already more socially competent than Maya had ever been, answered the door and immediately hugged her waist. "Aunt Maya! Mum said you were coming. We're having chicken and roasted vegetables, and Dad made chocolate chip cookies before he left, even though he said he didn't have time, but he did." Maya let herself be pulled inside, into the warmth and light and comfortable chaos of a home that functioned properly. Lauren appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel, and her face did that thing it always did when she saw Maya, a quick flicker of assessment checking for damage. "You look terrible," Lauren said, which was her version of "I love you." "Thanks." "I'm serious. When's the last time you slept?" Maya couldn't remember. "I sleep." "Sure you do." Lauren handed her a glass of wine, without asking if she wanted it. "Go sit. Dinner's almost ready." Maya sat at the dining table and let the normalcy wash over her. Lauren's younger daughter Emma, 6 and gap-toothed, showed her a picture she'd drawn of a cat that looked more like a potato. Max explained the plot of a video game in excruciating detail. Lauren moved efficiently between kitchen and table, carrying dishes, asking questions, keeping the conversation flowing with the skill of someone who'd been managing family dynamics since birth. The food was good, the wine was better. Maya felt her shoulders start to unknot, the tension bleeding out of her for the first time in days. She laughed at something Max said and was surprised to hear the sound coming from her own mouth. "See," Lauren said, raising her wine glass. "You're still human. I was starting to wonder. Barely. Is the apartment really that bad?" Maya thought about the refrigerator, the lingering light, the condensation writing and erasing itself, the shape in the chrome reflection that shouldn't exist. "It's fine." Lauren gave her a look that said she didn't believe that for a second, but wasn't going to push. "You know you can stay here any time. We have the spare room." "I know. I'm serious. If you need a break from being alone..." "I'm fine, Lauren." The conversation moved on, but Maya caught Lauren watching her throughout the meal, that worried assessment happening over and over. After dinner, after the kids were in bed, Lauren packed up leftovers in Tupperware with the brisk efficiency of someone who'd done this before, who expected to have to do it again. "Chicken, rice, vegetables," Lauren said, labelling containers with a Sharpie. "Enough for 3 meals if you actually eat meals, and cookies because you look like you haven't had sugar in a month." She paused, marker in hand. "You're doing okay, right?" "Like, really?" Maya took the containers. "Really. Because if you're not, if you need help or someone to talk to, or I'm fine." The words came out sharper than Maya intended. She softened her voice. "I promise. I'm just adjusting. It takes time." Lauren hugged her at the door, holding on longer than necessary. "Call me if you need anything. I mean it. 3 a.m. Doesn't matter. You call." Maya drove home through the rain, Lauren's leftovers on the passenger seat, and felt the dread building with every block closer to her apartment. The building loomed out of the darkness, its windows mostly dark, just a few lit from within like eyes. Maya sat in her car for 10 minutes after parking, watching the rain sheet across the windshield before she could make herself go inside. The lobby was empty. The stairs creaked under her feet. Her apartment door stuck like it always did, needing an extra shove to open. Everything was exactly as she'd left it, except the refrigerator was open. Maya stopped in the doorway, Lauren's containers still in her hands. The refrigerator door was open maybe 4 inches, pale, light spilling out into the dark kitchen. She'd closed it when she left. She knew she had. She always did. She set the containers down on the table by the door and approached the refrigerator slowly, her heart hammering. The light seemed brighter than usual, almost pulsing slightly, brightening and dimming in rhythm with something Maya couldn't identify. As she got closer, she heard it. The hum had changed. It was deeper now, more resonant, and underneath it was something else. Something that almost sounded like breathing. Maya grabbed the door and pulled it fully open. Everything inside was normal. The food she'd left, the water pitcher, the slowly rotting vegetables. Nothing had moved. Nothing was wrong. But on every shelf, condensation had gathered in patterns, lines and curves covering all the glass surfaces, moisture arranged in deliberate shapes. Still not quite words, but closer now. Close enough that Maya's brain tried to make sense of them, tried to see meaning in the patterns. On the bottom shelf, the moisture spelled something that looked almost like a name, S-I-G-H, with more letters forming and dissolving after it, unable to settle into permanence. Maya wiped the condensation away with shaking hands, smearing the patterns into nothing. The moisture was ice cold and made her fingers ache. She closed the refrigerator door hard, almost slamming it, and this time the light didn't linger. It cut off immediately. But in the instant before it did, Maya saw her reflection in the chrome handle, and behind her, closer than before, was that thin vertical shadow, standing in her kitchen like it had always belonged there. She spun around. The kitchen was empty, nothing but darkness and rain sound, and the refrigerator's hum back to its normal tone now, innocent and mechanical. Click, the latch, that soft metallic sound, like a tongue clicking in satisfaction, like a lock tumbling into place. Maya backed away from the refrigerator, her breath coming quick and shallow. She grabbed Lauren's containers from by the door and shoved them into the refrigerator without looking, just opened the door, threw them in, and slammed it shut again. The light flickered as the door closed, but didn't stay on. She was being ridiculous. She was tired and stressed, and the divorce had fucked her up more than she wanted to admit, and she was letting her imagination run away with her. Refrigerators didn't write messages. Shadows didn't stand in empty kitchens. Latches didn't click themselves. She was fine. Everything was fine. Maya went to bed and lay there in the darkness, listening to the rain and the building's old bones settling and underneath it all, the refrigerator's constant hum. She thought about Mrs. Rashid's warning, don't answer when it calls. But what if she didn't know how to stop answering? What if the calling had already started, and she'd already responded and it was too late to take it back? At 3:17 a.m, Maya opened her eyes in the darkness. She'd been dreaming about water, about drowning, about trying to breathe but inhaling only cold. She blinked, adjusting to the dark, and realised something was wrong. There was light coming from the kitchen. Not much, just a thin line under the door, pale and steady. Refrigerator light. Maya lay very still, her body rigid with fear. She hadn't gotten up. She was in bed, had been in bed, was still in bed. But the refrigerator was open. She waited, listening, trying to hear footsteps or movement or any indication that someone had broken in. But there was nothing, just the rain and the hum and that line of light under the kitchen door. Maya got up. She had to. She couldn't just lie there all night wondering. She crossed her small studio in bare feet, each step careful and deliberate, and pushed open the kitchen door. The refrigerator stood open, its interior light blazing, and every single item inside had been rearranged. Not randomly, deliberately. The milk was on the bottom shelf now, the vegetables on the top. The containers Lauren had given her were lined up in a perfect row on the middle shelf, labels facing out. Everything was organised with the kind of precise attention that suggested intention, purpose, care. Maya approached slowly. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound except the hum, which seemed almost pleased with itself, a satisfied purr under the mechanical drone. On the middle shelf, moisture had gathered again, but this time the letters were clearer. This time they spelled something. Sigh. Just that one word written in condensation, the letters dripping slowly down the glass. Maya reached out to wipe it away, and her hand passed through something cold that wasn't just air, something present, something aware. The temperature dropped so suddenly that her breath came out in a visible cloud. The refrigerator light brightened, then brightened again, becoming harsh and clinical, and in that light Maya saw it. In the chrome handle, in the warped reflection, the shadow behind her, but not behind her anymore. Beside her now, close enough to touch, thin and vertical and wrong, and when Maya looked at it directly in the reflection, it looked back. Not with eyes. It didn't have those, but it saw her. She could feel its attention like a physical weight pressing against her thoughts, examining her. The condensation on the shelves began writing again, faster now, letters forming and reforming in rapid succession. What are you hungry for? The words appeared in moisture across 3 shelves, letter by letter, and Maya couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't look away from the reflection where the shadow stood beside her, waiting for an answer she didn't know how to give. Nothing, Maya whispered. I'm not hungry. The shadow tilted just slightly, like it was considering her words and finding them lacking. The condensation letters rearranged themselves. Liar. Maya stumbled backward and the shadow followed in the reflection, keeping pace, staying close. The refrigerator light pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, bright, dim, and the hum rose in pitch, becoming almost a song, almost words, almost something that could speak her name if she listened long enough. She ran. She turned and bolted out of the kitchen, across her studio and out into the hallway, pulling the door shut behind her. Her chest heaved, her hands shook, her thoughts scattered in panic. The hallway was dark and empty, and the sound of rain against windows was very loud. Mrs. Rashid's door opened. The old woman stood in her doorway in a bathrobe, her grey hair loose around her shoulders, and she looked at Maya with eyes that held no surprise, just sadness, just recognition. You answered, Mrs. Rashid said quietly. Maya pressed her back against her door, her breath still coming in gasps. I didn't. You went looking for comfort in the cold. You opened the door at night. You stood there breathing in time with it. Mrs. Rashid shook her head. It knows you now, it knows what you need, and now it's going to offer. What is it? Siglach. The word came out like a sigh itself, soft and resigned. It lives in the seals, in the latches, in the space between closed and open. It feeds on the habit, on the ritual, on the need to stand in cold light and look for something you can't name. Maya's hands were shaking so hard she had to clasp them together. How do I make it stop? Mrs. Rashid's expression was infinitely sad. You tell it what you're really hungry for. You stand there with the door closing and you admit it out loud. You make it real, make it concrete, instead of letting it stay this vague ache you can't satisfy. She paused. Or you run. You leave this place and never come back and hope it doesn't follow. Does it? Follow? Sometimes. If you've fed it enough. If you've given it enough late nights and enough empty standing and enough pretending you were looking for food when you were looking for something else entirely. Mrs. Rashid's hand rested on her doorframe. What were you looking for, dear? Maya opened her mouth to say she didn't know, but the lie died in her throat. She knew. She'd known all along. She'd been looking for the feeling of being okay, for reassurance that tomorrow would be better, for comfort that didn't require her to ask anyone for help, for the sense that she could take care of herself, that she was fine, that she didn't need anyone, that she could stand in front of an open refrigerator and find what she needed without having to admit she needed anything at all. I don't know, Maya said anyway. Mrs. Rashid nodded like she'd expected that answer. Then you're going to keep feeding it until you figure it out, or until it takes what it wants. She started to close her door. Don't whisper, make it stop to the cold light, dear. That's what it's waiting for. That's the biggest lie of all. The door closed, the locks clicked. Maya stood in the hallway in her pyjamas, bare feet cold on the worn carpet, and thought about running. Down the stairs, out into the rain, into her car, driving anywhere else, leaving everything behind. She'd done it before. After the divorce, she'd packed up half a life in boxes and left everything else for David to sort out. She could do it again. But even as she thought it, she knew it was a lie. She'd never actually run from the divorce. She'd just relocated her avoidance to a smaller space. The refrigerator was just the latest place she'd found to hide. Maya took a breath, put her hand on her doorknob, and went back inside. The apartment was darker than it had been before, like the light itself had been drained out. Maya stood just inside the door, her hand still on the knob behind her, listening. The refrigerator's hum carried through the wall, steady and patient. No light showed from the kitchen. Everything was still. She walked slowly across the studio, each footstep deliberate, giving herself opportunities to turn back. The floorboards creaked under her weight, each sound sharp in the silence. When she reached the kitchen doorway, she paused, her hand on the frame, her breath shallow. The kitchen was dark except for a faint glow, not from the refrigerator itself, but from around its edges, like light was leaking from inside even though the door was closed. The chrome handle gleamed dully in that strange ambient illumination, and Maya couldn't look at it directly, couldn't face what might be waiting in the reflection. She flipped the light switch. The overhead fluorescent buzzed to life, harsh and flickering, casting everything in stark relief. The refrigerator stood against the wall, ordinary and innocent, its door firmly closed. No light leaked from the seals, no condensation patterns covered its surface, just an old appliance in an old kitchen in an old building. Maya crossed to it slowly. She put her hand on the chrome handle and felt it. That ice-cold temperature, that metal, shouldn't hold, not this long after being touched. The cold burned against her palm, but she didn't let go. She could see her reflection warped in the curve of the handle, her face distorted and strange, and behind her shoulder, nothing. Just the empty kitchen, harsh fluorescent light, her own shadow on the floor. Maya pulled the door open. The interior light came on normally, illuminating the shelves. Lauren's containers sat in their neat row where the refrigerator, where something had arranged them. The milk was still on the bottom shelf, vegetables on top, everything precisely organised. She reached out and deliberately moved the milk back to the door, put the vegetables back in the crisper, rearranged everything to how she'd had it originally. Her hands moved quickly, efficiently, reclaiming the space as her own. When she finished, she stepped back and waited. The refrigerator just hummed. Nothing moved, nothing changed. Maya closed the door. The light cut off normally. She stood there for a full minute, watching, waiting for it to open again on its own, waiting for the light to linger, waiting for something to prove this wasn't over. But the refrigerator just stood there, humming its mechanical song. She turned off the kitchen light and went back to bed. This time, exhaustion won over anxiety, and she fell into a sleep so deep it felt like drowning. The dreams came immediately. She was standing in a kitchen that wasn't hers, bigger and older, with windows that looked out onto rain that fell upward instead of down. The refrigerator in this dream kitchen was massive, industrial-sized, its chrome surface mirror bright. Maya could see herself reflected in it, but the reflection was wrong, too thin, too vertical, not quite human. The refrigerator door hung open, and inside was not food but rooms. Entire rooms stacked on shelves like dollhouse furniture, each one a perfect miniature. She could see herself in those rooms, dozens of versions of herself, all standing in front of smaller refrigerators, all with their hands on chrome handles, all looking back at her with expressions of desperate hunger. In the dream, Maya understood. Each of those versions was a moment she'd stood in cold light looking for comfort. Each was a confession of need she'd fed into the appliance. Each was a part of herself she'd tried to give away to something that would hold it without judgment. The shadow appeared behind her dream self, tall and thin and patient. It reached past her into the open refrigerator and began picking up those miniature rooms, those miniature Mayas, one by one. As it touched each one, they froze solid, becoming ice sculptures of need and want and hunger. Maya tried to close the refrigerator door, but her arms had become too thin, too vertical, too much like the shadow. She tried to scream, but her mouth only sighed, a soft exhalation that the shadow breathed in like nourishment. The dream refrigerator's hum rose to a scream and Maya woke. Up. 4:44 a.m. The apartment was dark and silent. Maya lay in bed, her heart racing, her skin clammy with sweat despite the cold. She listened for the refrigerator's hum, but couldn't hear it over the sound of rain against the windows. She got up, needing to prove to herself that the refrigerator was just a refrigerator, that the dream had been only a dream. The studio was dark, but she didn't turn on any lights, navigating by memory and the faint glow from the street. She pushed open the kitchen door. The refrigerator stood in perfect darkness, its hum so quiet she had to strain to hear it. Maya stood in the doorway for a long moment, waiting for her eyes to adjust, waiting for something to move or appear or prove her fear justified. Nothing happened. She went back to bed and didn't sleep again. Tuesday morning arrived grey and exhausted. Maya called in sick to work, actually sick this time, her body aching, her head pounding, her throat raw like she'd been screaming even though she hadn't made a sound. She spent the day on the couch wrapped in blankets, drifting in and out of feverish half-sleep, aware of the refrigerator humming in the kitchen but too tired to care. Her phone buzzed with messages she didn't read. Work emails piled up in her inbox. The hours blurred together into a continuous grey present, time losing meaning in the sound of the rain and the refrigerator's constant drone. At some point, Maya realised she was thirsty. Her mouth felt like cotton, her lips cracked. She needed water. The water pitcher was in the refrigerator. She didn't want to go into the kitchen, didn't want to open the refrigerator, didn't want to see if anything had changed, if the condensation had written new messages, if the shadow was waiting in the chrome reflection. But she was so thirsty. Maya got up slowly, her head swimming. She steadied herself against the wall and made her way to the kitchen. The door was already open. Had she left it that way? She couldn't remember. Everything felt distant and unreal, like she was watching herself from very far away. The refrigerator looked ordinary in the watery daylight filtering through the kitchen window. Just an appliance. Just a box. Maya put her hand on the handle. Warm for once. Or maybe her fever made everything feel warm, and opened the door. The water pitcher sat on the middle shelf exactly where it should be. Around it, condensation had gathered on the glass shelves, but in random patterns, natural accumulation, nothing that looked like letters or words or messages. Maya grabbed the pitcher with shaking hands and poured herself a glass. The water was so cold it hurt her teeth, but she drank it anyway, standing there with the refrigerator door open. The light seemed gentler in daylight, less harsh, almost kind. The hum was just a hum. Nothing spoke to her, nothing wrote messages, nothing stood in reflections. Maya filled her glass again and drank half of it before putting the pitcher back. She started to close the door and the light stayed on for 1 extra second. Just one. Barely noticeable, but enough to make Maya's hands still on the handle, enough to make her heart rate pick up, enough to remind her that whatever was happening, it wasn't over. She closed the door firmly and went back to the couch. The fever kept her there for the rest of the day and into the evening, sweating through her clothes, shivering under blankets, occasionally getting up to drink more water from the refrigerator that behaved itself every time except for that 1 second delay when the light cut off. By Wednesday morning, the fever had broken. Maya woke up clear-headed for the first time in days, her body aching but functional, her thoughts no longer clouded and strange. She showered, made coffee, checked her work email and sent apologetic messages about being back tomorrow. The apartment looked different in her post-fever clarity. Smaller, shabbier. The kitchen doorway just a kitchen doorway, the refrigerator just a refrigerator. In daylight, with her rational mind functioning properly, the past few days felt like fever dreams, stress hallucinations, the product of a mind pushed too far by divorce and isolation and the slow grind of loneliness. Condensation couldn't write messages. Shadows in reflections were just optical tricks. Latches didn't click themselves. She'd been sick and stressed, and probably experiencing some kind of breakdown, and now she was better, and everything would be fine. Maya repeated this to herself while she drank her coffee, while she ate toast standing at the counter, while she avoided looking at the refrigerator's chrome handle. She repeated it until she almost believed it. The day passed normally. Maya worked, catching up on the medical billing claims she'd neglected. She spoke to Lauren on the phone and sounded healthy enough that her sister's worry downshifted from acute to chronic. She ate a real dinner, pasta with vegetables from the crisper, and watched television until a reasonable bedtime. She was fine. Everything was fine. At 11 p.m, Maya brushed her teeth, washed her face, and climbed into bed with a book. She read 3 pages before her eyes started closing. She turned off the light at 11:47 and fell asleep within minutes. She woke at 2 a.m. exactly, her eyes opening like someone had flipped a switch. The apartment was dark and silent. The rain had finally stopped. leaving behind a heavy stillness that felt like the air was holding its breath. Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling and felt the pull. Not a sound, not a smell, just an awareness of the kitchen, of the refrigerator, of cold light waiting behind a closed door. The rational part of her mind said to stay in bed, to close her eyes, to go back to sleep and let this pass. But her body was already moving. She got up and walked to the kitchen like someone in a dream, her movements smooth and inevitable. Her hand found the kitchen door and pushed. It opened. The refrigerator stood in the darkness, but Maya could see light around its edges, that impossible glow that meant the door was closed but the light was on anyway. She crossed the kitchen and put her hand on the chrome handle. Ice cold again, cold enough to hurt. In the warped reflection, she could see herself, thin and distorted, and behind her shoulder was the shadow, closer than it had ever been, so close she should be able to feel its breath if it had breath to give. Maya pulled the door open. The refrigerator was empty, completely empty. All the food was gone, Lauren's containers, the vegetables, the milk, everything, just bare glass shelves coated in thick condensation. And in that condensation, written across every surface, the same question repeated over and over. What are you hungry for? What are you hungry for? What are you hungry for? The letters dripped and reformed, the question repeating endlessly. The refrigerator's hum rose to that, almost musical pitch, resonant and insistent. The cold air pouring out felt like hands on Maya's face, pulling warmth from her skin, and in the chrome handle's reflection, the shadow was no longer behind her. It was inside the refrigerator. Maya could see it in the warped reflection, standing among the empty shelves, thin and vertical and reaching toward her. The condensation letters rearranged themselves into new words. Feed me. Tell me, what do you need? What are you looking for in the cold? Admit it. Maya's breath came in short gasps. Her hands gripped the refrigerator door so hard her knuckles went white. The shadow in the reflection grew larger, spreading across all the chrome surfaces, and Maya felt it touching her thoughts again, rifling through her mind, looking for the answer. But this time, something was different. This time, Maya was tired of running, tired of denying, tired of pretending she didn't know exactly what she was hungry for every time she stood in front of this door at 2 a.m. I'm hungry for someone to tell me I'm okay, Maya said out loud, her voice shaking. I'm hungry for proof that I'm not failing. I'm hungry for comfort that doesn't require me to be vulnerable. I'm hungry for the feeling of being taken care of without having to ask. The shadow in the reflection stopped moving. The refrigerator's hum dropped back to its normal pitch. The condensation words dissolved into random droplets. Maya took a shuddering breath. That's what I'm hungry for. That's what I've always been hungry for. And standing here in the middle of the night staring into an empty refrigerator isn't going to give it to me. For a moment, nothing happened. The kitchen was silent except for the hum. Then, very slowly, the condensation began forming new letters. Good, now give it to me. Let me carry it. Say the words. Make it stop. Maya's hands trembled on the door. The temptation was enormous. To whisper those 3 words, to let the shadow take all of it, to be emptied of need and hunger and the exhausting work of being human. It would be so easy, so simple. Just 3 words and she could stop feeling this way. But she thought about what Mrs. Rashid had said. The biggest lie of all, because making it stop didn't mean healing. It meant giving up the capacity to need anything, to want anything, to be anything except hollow. No, Maya said. Her voice was stronger this time. You don't get it. It's mine. The shadow in the reflection surged forward, and Maya slammed the refrigerator door shut. The light cut off. The kitchen plunged into darkness so complete that Maya couldn't see her own hands. And then, all around her, she heard it. Not from one place, from everywhere, from the walls, the floor, the air itself. Click, 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 click. Dozens of latches, hundreds maybe, all clicking in unison. Like the entire apartment was one enormous lock tumbling into place. Like the building itself was sealing her in, claiming her, making her part of whatever fed on late-night hunger and unspoken need. Maya fumbled for the kitchen light switch and found it, flipped it on. The fluorescent buzzed and flickered but didn't come on fully, just strobed weakly, casting the kitchen in alternating darkness and harsh light. In that strobing illumination, Maya saw movement, not in reflections this time, but in the space itself. The shadows in the corners were too deep, too dark, and they were moving toward her. Not quickly, patiently, taking their time, and they were all thin and vertical, all that same wrong shape, like the shadow from the chrome reflection had multiplied, had become many, had decided to stop hiding. Maya backed toward the kitchen door, but it wouldn't open. The knob turned, but the door stayed shut, like it was locked from the other side, even though that was impossible. She was trapped in the kitchen with the flickering light and the moving shadows, and the refrigerator that was starting to open on its own. The door swung, wide, and the light inside was blinding, bright enough to hurt, and it was cold, so cold that frost formed instantly on every surface. The empty shelves gleamed with ice, and standing inside the refrigerator, impossible but undeniable, was the shadow. Not one shadow anymore. Many of them, packed together in that small space, thin vertical shapes layered like pages in a book. And they were all reaching toward Maya with appendages that might have been arms, might have been hunger given form, might have been the accumulated weight of every late-night moment she'd stood here seeking comfort in cold light. The refrigerator's hum became a scream, high-pitched and terrible, like metal tearing, like ice cracking, like something that had been patient for a very long time, finally losing patience. The shadows poured out of the refrigerator in a rush, filling the kitchen, surrounding Maya, pressing against her from all sides. She felt them touching her, ice-cold and invasive, and they were, pulling things out of her. Memories, moments. All the times she'd stood in front of a refrigerator. This one, the one in the house she'd shared with David, the one in her childhood home, dozens of refrigerators across her whole life, looking for something she couldn't name. All those moments were being pulled from her mind, extracted like teeth, and she could feel herself becoming less, becoming hollow, becoming empty. Maya screamed, and the sound that came out of her mouth was wrong, too close to a sigh, too close to what the shadows wanted her to be. She grabbed for the refrigerator door, trying to close it, trying to force them back inside, but her hands passed through the shadows like they weren't really there, or like she wasn't really there, or like reality had become negotiable. The kitchen light gave one final flicker and went out completely. In the absolute darkness, Maya felt the shadows converging, felt them pressing in from every direction, felt them about to consume her entirely. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think beyond the cold and the fear and the certainty that she was about to be erased. And then Mrs. Rashid's voice cut through the darkness. Siglach, enough. The command was loud enough to hurt, loud enough to make the walls vibrate, loud enough to make the shadows pause. Maya felt them pull back slightly, felt the pressure ease just enough for her to draw breath. She named it, Mrs. Rashid's voice continued, coming from somewhere outside the kitchen. She admitted what she was hungry for. She refused to give it to you. By the old rules, by the original bargain, you have to let her go. The shadows hissed, an awful sound like air escaping from something that shouldn't have air to escape. The refrigerator light blazed back to life, but gentler this time, less harsh. The shadows began withdrawing, slowly, reluctantly, flowing back into the refrigerator like water down a drain. Now, Mrs. Rashid commanded, and the last of the shadows disappeared into the appliance. The refrigerator door swung shut on its own, the light cutting off, the hum dropping back to its normal pitch. The kitchen door opened. Mrs. Rashid stood in the doorway in her bathrobe, her grey hair wild around her shoulders, holding what looked like a very old, very worn book. The fluorescent light buzzed back to life properly, illuminating her lined face. "Come out of there," she said to Maya, her voice gentle now. "Quickly before it changes its mind." Maya stumbled out of the kitchen on shaking legs. As soon as she crossed the threshold, Mrs. Rashid pushed the door shut and pressed something against it. A small object that might have been a coin or a button or something else entirely. The kitchen door shuddered once, then went still. "It can't reach you out here," Mrs. Rashid said. "Not tonight. Not after you named your hunger and refused the bargain." She guided Maya to the couch and made her sit. "But you came very close. Very, very close." Maya's whole body was shaking. What was... "Siglach, I told you. It lives in the latches, in the seals, in the space between comfort and emptiness." Mrs. Rashid sat in the chair across from Maya, the old book in her lap. "It's been in this building for as long as I've been here. Maybe longer. It feeds on people like us. People who go looking for comfort in cold places. People who can't name what they need. People who stand in front of refrigerators at night, and pretend they're looking for food. Why didn't you warn me better? Why didn't you tell me what would happen? Mrs. Rashid's expression was sad. Would you have believed me? Would you have understood? Some things you have to learn for yourself. Some truths you have to discover in the cold. She opened the book, its pages yellowed and brittle. But you did well. You named your hunger instead of feeding it to Siglatch. You refused to say the words it wanted. That's more than most people manage, Maya looked at. The kitchen door, which was vibrating slightly like something on the other side, was testing its strength. Is it over? For tonight? Mrs. Rashid turned pages looking for something. But Siglatch doesn't leave. It waits. It's patient. The next time you're tired, the next time you're hurting, the next time you find yourself standing in front of the refrigerator looking for something you can't name, it'll be there. It'll always be there. Then what do I do? Mrs. Rashid found the page she was looking for and turned the book so Maya could see. The text was handwritten in ink that had faded to brown, the words in a language Maya didn't recognise. But accompanying the text were drawings, simple line drawings of refrigerators, of shadows, of thin vertical shapes standing behind people who looked too much like Maya. You do what I did, Mrs. Rashid said. You learn the rules. You learn how to keep it fed just enough that it doesn't come hunting, but not so much that it takes everything. You learn to name your hunger every single time, to admit what you need out loud, to never let it become the vague ache that Siglatch feeds on best. She closed the book. And you learn to help the next person who moves into this building and starts making late-night trips to their kitchen. There's a next person. There's always a next person. Siglatch makes sure of it. Mrs. Rashid stood slowly, her joints creaking. Get some rest. Real rest. And tomorrow we'll talk about the rules properly. About how to live in the same building as Siglatch without becoming its food. She went to the door, then paused. And Maya, don't go into the kitchen tonight. No matter how thirsty you get, no matter how hungry, Siglatch will be angry that you escaped, and it'll be looking for ways to pull you back. Give it time to settle. Mrs. Rashid left, taking the old book with her. Maya sat on the couch in her silent apartment and listened to the refrigerator hum through the kitchen door. It sounded normal, mechanical, harmless. But every few minutes she heard it. Soft and quiet but undeniable. Click. The latch, reminding her it was still there. Still waiting, still hungry for what she'd refused to give. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat on the couch with every light in the apartment on, watching the kitchen door, and when dawn finally came, grey and cold, she felt like she'd survived something that shouldn't be survivable. Her phone buzzed. Lauren. Hope you're feeling better. Coffee this weekend? Maya typed back. Yes. There's something I need to talk to you about. She didn't know how to explain it. Didn't know if Lauren would believe her, didn't know if understanding Siglatch would make it easier or harder to live with. But she knew she couldn't do this alone anymore. Couldn't keep pretending she was fine. Couldn't keep looking for comfort in cold places. Couldn't keep feeding what lived in the latches and seals and the space between her need and her ability to name it. The refrigerator hummed. The rain started falling again, and Maya sat on her couch in the growing daylight, exhausted and terrified and alive, and began to figure out how to keep herself that way. The next story is about to begin. Please relax and enjoy. Rain turns the parking lot into a mirror of broken neon, and Marcus Reeves stands at the edge of it, watching red and blue letters stutter across the shallow water. The laundromat sign keeps losing its middle syllables. Wash becomes WSH, becomes nothing, becomes wash again. Like the night itself can't decide what it wants to say. His duffel bag pulls at his shoulder, heavy with 3 days of unworn clothes and the kind of exhaustion that doesn't wash out. He's been awake since 4 in the morning, drove 6 hours for a job interview that lasted 20 minutes, and now he's back in this strip mall at the edge of town where everything smells like wet asphalt and failing businesses. The laundromat is the only thing still open. Everything else, the tax place, the nail salon, the sandwich shop with its windows papered over, gave up hours ago. Marcus crosses the parking lot and pushes through the glass door, and the warmth hits him like a wall. Damp air thick with detergent and fabric. Softener. The mechanical hum of dryers spinning in their slow hypnotic circles. Fluorescent lights overhead making everything look slightly unreal, slightly too bright and too flat at the same time, like a memory of a place instead of the actual place. There's one other person inside, an older woman folding towels at a table near the back, moving with the careful slowness of someone whose joints hurt. She doesn't look up when Marcus enters. He walks past the rows of washers, most of them dark, a few spinning with someone else's abandoned loads, and heads toward the change machine mounted on the wall near the bathroom. He needs quarters. The job interview didn't go well. They said they'd call, which means they won't. He has $40 left until Friday and rent is due Tuesday, and he just needs to wash his interview shirt so he can wear it again tomorrow at the temp agency. Simple. Practical. Nothing dramatic. The change machine is old, one of those boxy metal units that looks like it's been bolted to the wall since the 80s. Scratched glass front, coin slot at chest height, return tray at waist level. Someone has carved initials into the metal casing. JR plus MK, surrounded by a lopsided heart. Marcus pulls a 20 from his wallet, smooths it out, feeds it into the bill slot. The machine takes it with a mechanical whisper, pulls it inside. Then nothing. Marcus waits. The machine hums quietly, a sound so low he feels it more than hears it. 10 seconds. 20. The fluorescent lights overhead flicker once, not dramatically, just a brief stutter that makes his vision swim for half a second. When they settle, they're dimmer, softer. The whole laundromat looks like it's been wrapped in gauze. He presses the coin return button. Nothing happens. Presses it again, harder. The machine continues its low hum. "Come on," Marcus mutters. He presses the button 3 more times, then slaps the side of the machine with his palm. The metal is warm, not hot, just warm enough to notice, warm enough to feel wrong. He pulls his hand back and looks at his palm like it might show him something, but it's just his hand, same as always. The return tray opens, not all the way, just a couple inches, then it stops. Opens another inch, closes halfway, opens again. The motion is regular, rhythmic. Marcus stares at it. The tray looks like it's breathing. In, out, in, out. A slow mechanical respiration that has nothing to do with dispensing change. Inside the machine something clinks, metal on metal, one clear note, then another, then a third. Marcus's chest tightens. He counts his own heartbeat without meaning to, feels it pulse in his throat. 1, 2, 3. The clinks inside the machine match exactly. When his heart rate picks up, the clinks speed up with it, patient and precise, like they're waiting for him to understand. "Jesus," Marcus says. His voice sounds too loud in the quiet laundromat. He glances back at the woman folding towels, but she's not there anymore. The table is empty, the half-folded towels abandoned in a pile. He didn't hear her leave. The dryers keep spinning, keep humming, but when he looks closer, they're all empty. Just drums spinning around nothing. He turns back to the change machine. His reflection stares at him from the scratched glass. Tired eyes, hair plastered to his forehead from the rain, t-shirt collar stretched out and faded. He looks like someone who's been treading water for months and just realised the shore isn't getting any closer. His reflection lifts its hand. Marcus hasn't moved. His hands are at his sides, fingers twitching slightly but still. In the glass, his reflection reaches into a pocket he's not reaching into and pulls out something that glints between its fingers. A coin. The reflection holds it up for a moment. Marcus can see it clearly, can see the worn silver edge, the profile stamped into the face, and then the reflection slides it into the coin slot with calm, deliberate certainty. Marcus jerks backward, and his reflection lags. For a full second, it stays where it is, arm still extended, still feeding the imaginary coin into the slot, like the action has to be completed before it can sync back up with him. Then it catches up, snaps into position, and Marcus is looking at his own face again, pale and shocked. The return tray breathes wider, opens all the way, stays open. Warm air rises from inside the machine, and Marcus smells it, metallic and organic at the same time, like pennies and wet electricity, like blood on a chain-link fence. He gags, covers his mouth, stumbles back another step. The clinks inside the machine change. They're not random anymore. They're deliberate, patterned, almost rhythmic, like someone tapping out Morse code with a socket wrench. Tap, 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 tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. The pattern repeats, and Marcus feels something rising in his chest, something he's been pushing down for weeks. I just need one more chance, the thought. Arrives clear and raw, stripped of all the rationalizations he usually wraps it in. Not a chance at the job. They're not calling back. Not a chance with Sarah. She blocked his number 6 months ago. Just a chance. One more attempt at not being the person he's become. One more try at being someone who doesn't fuck everything up. The machine seems to hear it. The clinks pause for a moment, then resume, softer now, almost polite. The return tray continues its slow breathing, and in the warmth rising from inside, Marcus swears he can see shapes forming, not quite visible, not quite invisible, like looking at something through layers of heat shimmer. Something small and hunched and patient. His phone buzzes in his pocket. Marcus fumbles for it, desperate for any interruption, any reason to step away from this machine and this feeling. The screen shows a text from his brother. "You good? Haven't heard from you in a while." Marcus stares at it. He hasn't answered his brother's last 4 texts. Hasn't answered because he doesn't know how to explain that he's not good, hasn't been good in a long time, and doesn't know when he stopped being able to pretend otherwise. The machine clinks again, and this time Marcus hears it clearly. A sound that could be syllables if syllables were made of metal. Something that could be words if you knew how to listen. He shoves his phone back in his pocket and looks around the laundromat. Still empty. Still just him and the spinning dryers and the fluorescent lights that won't settle into their normal brightness. Rain streaks down the windows, and outside in the parking lot, the neon sign continues its broken rhythm. Wash. Beware. Nothing. Wash. Marcus takes a breath and steps back toward the machine. His reflection watches him approach. This time it doesn't move independently. It matches him exactly. But there's something in its eyes that he doesn't like. Some expression that isn't quite what he's feeling. It looks knowing. It looks like it's waiting. He reaches out slowly, carefully, and touches the coin slot. The metal is warm. Warmer than before. Almost hot now. Hot enough that he should pull his hand away but doesn't. His fingers rest against it, and for a moment he feels something impossible. The texture of skin, warmth and softness, and the faint sensation of a pulse underneath. Then it's metal again. Just metal. And he yanks his hand back with a gasp. The return tray snaps shut, then opens again. Shut. Open. Shut. Open! The rhythm is faster now, urgent, like something trying to communicate, like something hungry. Marcus remembers, suddenly and completely, the conversation he overheard 2 weeks ago. He'd been here before, same laundromat, same late-night exhaustion, and 2 men had been talking near the detergent vending machine. One of them older, wearing a security uniform, the other younger, maybe early 20s, holding a basket of clothes that smelled like kitchen grease. "Just don't use the change. Machine when it's raining," the older man had said, not quite joking. "What, it breaks?" "Nah, worse. It works." The older man had laughed, but it wasn't a comfortable sound. "My cousin Eddie used it during a storm last year. Said it started acting strange. Breathing, he called it. Making noises that matched his heartbeat." "Fuck off. I'm serious. He said there's something inside it. Something that listens. Bell tither, some people call it. Lives in the machines, change machines, vending machines, anything with a coin slot and a return flap. Feeds on something, I don't know what. Eddie wouldn't talk about it much after. Just said he stopped using machines at night." Marcus had dismissed it as the kind of bullshit people tell each other in laundromats at 2 a.m, the urban legend equivalent of campfire stories. But now, standing here with the machine breathing at him and his reflection acting on its own, the memory takes on weight. He digs into his pocket, not sure what he's looking for. His fingers find a loose change, 3 quarters, a dime, 2 pennies. He pulls them out and stares at them in his palm. The quarters are worn smooth, their edges soft from thousands of transactions. One of them has a date he can barely read, 1987, older than he is. The machine clinks again. The sound is expectant now, almost eager. The return tray opens fully and stays open, waiting. Marcus's throat is dry. He swallows, tries to work up some saliva, fails. "What do you want?" he says to the machine, to his reflection, to whatever's inside making those sounds. The clinks stop. The silence is worse. Marcus can hear his own breathing, fast and shallow. Can hear the dryer still spinning, though when he looks, he sees that they've all stopped in the exact same position, doors all facing the same direction like eyes. Can hear the rain outside, steady and patient. Then the machine makes a new sound. Not a clink, a whisper, soft and multitonal like several voices speaking, at once, all saying the same thing at slightly different speeds so the words blur and echo. He can't make out what it's saying, but the cadence is familiar, the rhythm of a plea, a request, a bargain. His reflection in the glass lifts its hand again. This time, Marcus feels his own hand twitch, feels the impulse to mirror the movement. The reflection points to the top of the machine, to the flat metal surface above the coin slot. Then it makes a gesture, placing something down. Then it raises one finger to its lips. Shh. Marcus understands, or thinks he does. Some part of him, the part that still remembers his grandmother's superstitions and his mother's warnings about not tempting fate, knows what he's supposed to do. If the coin slot starts chiming in your rhythm, you must place one coin on top of the machine, keep your mouth closed, and silently name your real need without bargaining. He doesn't know where the rule comes from, it's just there, complete and certain, like it was always in his head and he only just remembered it. His grandmother used to say things like that, rules for avoiding bad luck, for appeasing things that shouldn't exist but did anyway. Don't whistle at night. Don't open an umbrella indoors. Don't count crows unless you're willing to hear what they say. This feels the same. Old knowledge. The kind that survives because people who ignore it don't. Marcus looks at the quarters in his palm, chooses one, the oldest one, the 1987, because it feels right somehow. He reaches up and places it on top of the change machine, in the centre of the flat metal surface. The coin sits there, small and real and refusing the slot. Not payment, an offering, a gesture that says, I'm listening, I'm following the rules, please let me go home. The machine hums, the sound changes pitch, goes lower, becomes something he feels in his bones rather than hears. The return tray closes slowly, almost gently, and stays closed. Marcus presses his lips together, closes, his mouth. The urge to speak is overwhelming. I just need one more chance, please. I just need one more chance. But he clamps down on it, holds it behind his teeth. His jaw aches with the effort. Instead, he names his real need. Silently. Honestly. Without bargaining or conditions or promises he won't keep. I need rest, he thinks. I need to stop feeling like I'm drowning. I need to believe things can get better without needing them to get better right now. I need to stop measuring my worth by how much I'm failing. The thoughts come clear and simple, and with them comes a kind of exhaustion that's different from the usual tiredness. This is deeper. This is the bone tiredness of someone who's been running on empty for so long they forgot what full feels like. He doesn't promise to change, doesn't promise to do better, doesn't try to trade his honesty for an outcome. He just lets the truth exist in his chest, raw and unconditioned, and waits. The warmth in the coin slot fades. The metal cools. The machine's hum drops to its normal frequency, becomes just another appliance sound in a room full of appliances. The return tray stays closed for another few seconds, and then it opens with a simple mechanical click. Quarters fall into the tray. Marcus counts them automatically. 20. $80 in quarters, which is wrong. He only put in a 20, but he's not going to argue with the math. The coins are cold and normal, and they sound exactly the way quarters should sound when they hit metal. He scoops them up with shaking hands, shoves them into his pocket. The quarter on top of the machine stays where he left it. He reaches for it, hesitates, decides to leave it there. Offering made, offering accepted. Don't push your luck. The fluorescent lights overhead flicker once, then stabilize at their normal brightness. The laundromat snaps back into focus. Sharp edges, clear colours, the ordinary reality of a place where people wash clothes. The dryer starts spinning. Again, and Marcus realises there are clothes inside them after all, someone else's load tumbling through the cycle. The woman who was folding towels is back at her table, though Marcus didn't see her return. She's humming something under her breath, something that might be a hymn or might just be a tune. Marcus loads his clothes into a washer, adds detergent, feeds quarters into the slot, regular quarters, in a regular machine, that accepts them with regular mechanical sounds. The washer starts its cycle, and he sits down on one of the plastic chairs bolted to the wall and watches his clothes tumble through soapy water. His hands are still shaking. His heart rate is still elevated. But the pressure in his chest, the thing that's been sitting there for months, heavy and insistent, feels lighter, not gone, just less. Outside, the rain continues. The neon sign keeps flickering. Wash, wash. But it feels like weather now, like ordinary light, like the regular chaos of things, breaking down and continuing anyway. Marcus closes his eyes and lets the sound of the machines wash over him. Somewhere in the building a pipe clanks. Water rushes through ancient plumbing. A dryer buzzes to signal the end of its cycle. Everything is exactly what it should be. When he opens his eyes, the woman folding towels is looking at him. She doesn't smile, doesn't acknowledge him, just holds his gaze for a moment with an expression he can't read. Then she goes back to her folding, and Marcus goes back to waiting, and the night continues its slow progression toward morning. His phone buzzes again. His brother, still waiting for an answer. Marcus pulls it out, stares at the screen, types, "I'm okay. Sorry I've been quiet. How are you?" He hits send before he can second guess it. The message goes through. 3 dots appear as his brother starts typing back. Marcus watches them pulse, feels something in his chest unclench another fraction. The washer cycle ends. He transfers his clothes to a dryer, feeds it more quarters, sits back down, waits. The woman finishes her folding and leaves, carrying her basket of clean towels. The door swings shut behind her, and Marcus is alone. Not quite alone. He can feel it. The awareness of the machines around him. The sense that they're watching in the way only inanimate objects can watch. But it's not malevolent. It's just present. The laundromat exists in its liminal space, the middle ground between day and night, between one thing and another, and Marcus is just passing through. The dryer buzzes. He pulls out his clothes, warm and clean and smelling like generic detergent. Folds his interview shirt carefully, smooths out the wrinkles. Tomorrow he'll go to the temp agency. Maybe they'll have something. Maybe they won't. Either way, he'll be wearing a clean shirt. He packs everything back into his duffel bag, slings it over his shoulder, walks toward the door, pauses with his hand on the handle and looks back at the change machine. The quarter is still on top of it, small and silver in the fluorescent light. The machine hums its normal hum. The coin slot is just a coin slot. The return tray is just a return tray. Marcus pushes through the door and walks out into the rain. It's colder now, sharper, the kind of rain that wakes you up instead of weighing you down. He crosses the parking lot, gets into his car, sits there for a moment with the engine running and the heat struggling to life. In the rearview mirror he can see the laundromat through the rain-streaked back window. The lights are still on, the machines are still running, and on top of the change machine, barely visible from this distance, the quarter catches the light and gleams like a small star. Marcus puts the car in gear and drives home. But there are other nights, and there are other customers, and not everyone knows the rules. 3 days later, a woman named Jessica Kwan pulls into the same parking lot at 11:30 p.m. She's been driving for 8 hours, running from an apartment she shares with a boyfriend who drinks too much and apologizes too little. Her car is packed with everything she could fit in 20 minutes. Clothes, laptop, the photo albums her mother gave her, the stuffed rabbit she's had since she was 6 and can't quite bring herself to throw away. She has $400 in cash and a cousin in Portland who said she could crash on their couch for a few weeks while she figures things out. But she's exhausted. Wired and exhausted at the same time, running on gas station coffee and adrenaline and the shaky feeling of having finally done something she should have done months ago. She needs to pee, needs to splash water on her face, needs 5 minutes in a brightly lit public space before she gets back on the highway. The laundromat is open. She parks, locks her car, checks twice that it's locked, all her possessions visible through the windows, and goes inside. Warmth, the smell of detergent. Fluorescent lights that flicker slightly but hold. There's no one else here. Jessica heads straight for the bathroom, relieves herself, washes her hands and face in the rust-stained sink, looks at herself in the mirror. Her eyes are red. Her hair is a mess. There's a bruise on her collarbone, dark purple and finger-shaped, from 2 nights ago when he'd grabbed her during an argument she can't even remember the content of anymore. She pulls her collar up to cover it and walks back out into the laundromat. She should leave. She knows she should leave. But there's a vending machine near the back, and she realises she hasn't eaten since lunch, and maybe a candy bar would help. Maybe sugar would give her enough energy to drive another few hours before she has to stop. The vending machine has the usual options. Snickers, Kit Kat, Cheetos, pretzels. She has someone's in her wallet from the gas station. She pulls out a 5, then realises the vending machine only takes ones or quarters, folds the 5 back up, turns toward the change machine mounted on the wall. It looks old but functional. Scratched glass, metal casing, a coin slot at chest height. Someone has carved initials into the side, JR plus MK. Jessica touches them absently, traces the heart with her finger. Then she feeds her $5 bill into the slot. The machine takes it, pauses. The fluorescent lights overhead flicker once, and Jessica glances up automatically, but they settle. When she looks back down, the lights in the laundromat seem softer somehow, like they've been dimmed just a fraction. She waits. 10 seconds, 20. Presses the coin return button. Nothing happens. Presses it again, harder. "Come on," she mutters. "Don't do this. Not tonight." The return tray opens just a little, then a little more. Then it closes halfway and opens again, like it's testing the motion, like it's remembering how breathing works. Jessica stares at it. The tray moves in a steady rhythm, in, out, and she feels her own breath trying to match it. She forces herself to breathe differently, faster, but the tray doesn't change its pace. It's not following her. It has its own rhythm. Inside the machine, something clinks. Metal on metal, clear and precise. One note, then another, then a third. Jessica's pulse jumps and the clinks speed up slightly, adjust to match her new heart rate. "What the fuck?" she whispers. The clinks continue. They're not random. They're patterned, deliberate, like someone tapping out a message she doesn't know how to read. She looks around the laundromat, still empty, still just her and the machines. The dryers are spinning, but when she looks closer, they're all empty. Just drums rotating around nothing. She turns back to the change machine. Her reflection stares at her from the scratch glass. She looks worse than she did in the bathroom mirror. Pale. Scared. The bruise on her collarbone is visible again. Her collar has slipped down. Her reflection reaches up and adjusts the collar to cover the bruise. Jessica hasn't moved. Her hands are at her sides. In the glass, her reflection's fingers carefully pull the fabric up, smooth it down, hide the purple mark. The motion is gentle, almost tender. Then the reflection's hand moves to its pocket, Jessica's pocket, and pulls out something that isn't there. A coin. The reflection holds it between thumb and forefinger, examines it for a moment, then slides it into the coin slot with slow certainty. Jessica jerks backward, and her reflection lags for a full second, still feeding the imaginary coin, before it snaps back into sync. "No," Jessica says. "No, fuck this. I'm leaving." But she doesn't leave. She stands there, rooted, because the return tray is opening wider now, staying open, and warm air is rising from inside the machine. She smells it, metallic and wrong, like blood and ozone, like the air right before a lightning strike. The smell makes her gag, makes her think of the night he'd split her lip and she'd tasted copper for hours afterward. The clinks inside the machine change pattern. They become almost musical, rhythmic, like someone drumming fingers on metal in a complicated pattern that means something. And Jessica feels it rising in her chest, the thought she's been carrying since she packed her car and drove away. I just need one more chance to make him understand. Not a chance to leave, she's already leaving. A chance to make him see what he's doing, to make him acknowledge the damage, to get some kind of closure or apology or recognition that this thing between them mattered even if it ended badly. One more conversation that doesn't end in slammed doors and broken promises. The machine hears it. Jessica can feel it listening, can feel the attention of something small and hungry and patient, focusing on her like a beam of light. The clinks soften, become almost gentle, almost inviting. The return tray breathes at her. In the warmth rising, from inside she sees shapes forming. Not quite real, not quite hallucination. Something hunched and small with too many joints, with fingers that might be fingers or might be wires, with a face that might be a face or might be the suggestion of one. Bhoot, she thinks, and doesn't know where the name came from. That's what it's called. That's what lives in the machines. Her phone rings. Jessica fumbles for it, desperate for any interruption. The screen shows her cousin's name. She answers. "Hey," her cousin says. "Just checking that you're still coming? You should have been here like 3 hours ago." "I'm coming," Jessica says. Her voice sounds strange, too high and too tight. "I just stopped for a break. I'll be there soon. You okay? You sound weird." "I'm fine, just tired." She's watching the change machine while she talks. The return tray is still open, still breathing. The clinks have stopped, but she can feel something waiting inside, patient and attentive. "Okay, drive. Safe. Text me when you're close." "I will." Jessica hangs up, shoves the phone back in her pocket, looks at the machine. She should walk away, should write off the $5, get in her car, drive to Portland, start the new life she's supposedly starting. Should leave this place and this machine and whatever's inside it. But $5 is $5. She's down to $400 in cash and no idea when she'll find a job. Every dollar matters. And besides, it's just a machine. Machines malfunction. The rain probably got into the electronics or something. There's a rational explanation. She steps closer, reaches out, touches the coin slot. The metal is hot. Too hot. Hot enough that she should pull her hand back immediately, but she doesn't. Her fingers rest against it, and for a moment the texture changes. Becomes soft. Becomes skin. She feels a pulse underneath. Slow and strong. And then it's metal again, and she's gasping. The return tray snaps shut. Opens. Shut. Open. Faster. Now, urgent. Jessica remembers something. A story she heard once. Maybe in college. Maybe from a roommate who believed in urban legends. Something about machines that listen. About offerings and rules. She can't remember the details, just the shape of it. The sense that there are ways to navigate things that shouldn't exist. She digs in her pocket and finds change. 2 quarters, 3 dimes, a nickel. The quarters are warm from being pressed against her leg during the long drive. She pulls one out, looks at it. 2003, the year she graduated high school, the year before everything got complicated. She reaches up and places the quarter on top of the machine. It sits there, small and solid, refusing the slot. Not payment, something else. Keep your mouth closed, she thinks. Name your real need. Don't bargain. She doesn't know where the thought comes from, but it feels true. Feels like a rule that's been around longer than she has. Jessica closes her mouth, presses her lips together. The urge to speak is overwhelming. I just need one more chance to make him understand. Just one more conversation. Just one more. But she holds it back. Her jaw aches. Her throat aches with unspoken words. Instead, she thinks about what she really needs. I need to stop needing his understanding, she thinks. I need to believe that leaving was enough, that I don't need him to validate my decision or acknowledge the hurt. I need to let go of the idea that closure comes from him and not from me. The truth of it hurts worse than the bruise on her collarbone. She lets it sit in her chest, doesn't try to soften it or bargain it away, just lets it be true. The machine hums, the sound shifts, goes lower, becomes something she feels in her teeth. The return tray closes gently and stays closed. Then it opens with a simple click and quarters fall into the tray. Jessica counts them. 20. $5 in quarters. Exactly what she put in. The coins are cold and normal and they sound exactly, right when they hit metal. She scoops them up with shaking hands, shoves them into her pocket. The quarter on top of the machine stays where it is. She doesn't take it back. The fluorescent lights overhead flicker and brighten. The laundromat snaps back into focus, sharp and real and ordinary. The dryers are spinning with actual clothes inside them now, someone else's load making its slow rotation. Jessica blinks, and there's a man sitting in one of the plastic chairs near the wall reading a magazine. She didn't see him come in. Maybe he was always there and she just didn't notice. She walks to the vending machine, feeds it quarters, selects a Snickers bar. The machine dispenses it with a simple mechanical thunk, and Jessica catches it as it falls. Tears open the wrapper, takes a bite. The chocolate and peanuts and caramel taste exactly the way they're supposed to taste. Sweet and salty and grounding. She finishes the candy bar, throws the wrapper away, walks back outside into the rain. It's lighter now, just a drizzle, the kind that mists rather than falls. She gets into her car, locks the doors, sits there for a moment with the engine running. In the rearview mirror she can see the laundromat. The lights are bright. The man is still reading his magazine, and on top of the change machine, barely visible from this distance, the quarter gleams. Jessica puts the car in gear and drives to Portland. She doesn't look back. But not everyone follows the rules. Not everyone knows them. A week later, a man named Tom Delacroix pulls into the parking lot at 1 a.m. He's drunk. Not falling down drunk, but enough that his vision has soft edges and his thoughts move in loose, comfortable spirals. He's been at the bar 6 blocks away, celebrating a promotion he probably won't get and flirting with a woman who probably isn't interested. Now he's here because he spilled beer down his shirt and it's starting to smell, and he has a meeting in the morning and he needs to wash the shirt before he passes out. The laundromat is open. Tom staggers inside, carrying his shirt balled up in one hand. He's wearing an undershirt, and the fluorescent lights make his skin look pale and sweaty. He walks to a washer, throws the shirt in, realises he needs detergent. There's a vending machine near the back that sells single-use pods. He needs quarters. He pats his pockets, finds a 20. Walks to the change machine on the wall. Feeds the bill into the slot, the machine takes it. Pauses. Tom leans against the wall, waiting. He's not thinking about much, just the comfortable fuzz of alcohol and the vague plan to wash the shirt, dry it, maybe sleep for a few hours before the meeting, maybe jerk off before he sleeps, maybe text the woman from the bar one more time, see if she's still awake. The fluorescent lights flicker. Tom barely notices. The return tray opens, closes, opens again. He watches it with dull interest, like it's a mildly entertaining malfunction. Inside the machine, something clinks in rhythm with his heartbeat. Tom doesn't notice. He's too drunk to notice. His reflection in the glass lifts its hand and feeds an imaginary coin into the slot. Tom sees it happen, processes it slowly, decides it's the beer playing tricks. He laughs. His reflection laughs a half-second later, the sound slightly out of sync. The return tray breathes at him. Warm air rises from inside the machine, smelling like blood and metal. Tom wrinkles his nose but doesn't step back. He's too drunk to be properly afraid. "Come on," he says to the machine. His words slur slightly. "Give me my quarters." The clinks inside speed up, become eager. Tom feels something rising in his chest. A thought he's been carrying all night. Maybe longer. I just need one more chance with her. Not the woman from the bar, someone else. Someone from 6 months ago who stopped answering his texts after the third date went badly. He doesn't even remember her name clearly, anymore. Christine? Christina? But he remembers the way she looked at him when he'd gotten too drunk at dinner and said something he shouldn't have. He wants a chance to take that back, to prove he's not that guy, to get her to see him the way he sees himself. Decent, charming, worth a second look. The machine hears it. The clinks become precise, almost rhythmic, like a counting mechanism engaging. Tom should place a coin on top of the machine, should keep his mouth shut, should name his real need without bargaining. But Tom doesn't know the rules. Tom is drunk and impatient and tired of machines that don't work. "I just need one more chance," Tom says out loud, speaking to the machine, to his reflection, to the empty laundromat. Just one more fucking chance with her. The coin slot warms. The warmth spreads through the metal casing, welcoming and eager. The clinks inside speed up, become almost frantic, like something counting money. The return tray opens, not all the way, just not. Enough for something to come out. But what emerges isn't quarters. It's Tom's voice. Soft and tinny, like it's playing through a small speaker, but unmistakably his voice saying, "I just need one more chance." Tom stares at the machine. His drunk brain tries to process what he's hearing. It's his voice, exact in cadence and tone, repeating the sentence back to him like a recording. "I just need one more chance." Again and again, each repetition identical to the last. "What the fuck?" Tom says. He giggles, a nervous sound. Is this some kind of joke? The machine doesn't answer. It just keeps playing his voice. "I just need one more chance. I just need one more chance. I just need one more chance." Tom reaches for the return tray, thinking maybe there's a speaker in there. Maybe someone's fucking with him. His fingers touch the warm metal, and the voice gets louder, clearer, more insistent. "I just need one more chance." "Stop it," Tom says. He's not giggling anymore. "Seriously, stop it." The machine doesn't stop. The voice continues its loop, and now the dryers are joining in, their motors changing pitch to match the rhythm of the words, creating a kind of mechanical harmony. The washers start sloshing in time, the fluorescent lights flicker in sync. Tom stumbles backward. His shoulder hits a folding table and he spins around, looking for whoever's controlling this. But the laundromat is empty. Just him, and the machines, and his own voice echoing from the change machine. He pulls out his phone, tries to call 911, but his fingers are clumsy and he can't make them hit the right numbers. The voice from the machine gets louder. "I just need one more chance. I just need one more chance. I just need one more chance." "I said stop it," Tom shouts. The machine goes silent. The dryers stop humming, the washers stop sloshing, the lights stop flickering. For a moment, the laundromat is completely quiet. Then the return tray opens fully and quarters start falling out. But they don't fall normally. They fall in a stream, one after another, far more than 20 quarters, far more than the machine should be able to hold. They hit the tray with a sound that's almost musical, almost like laughter. Tom watches them fall. 50 quarters, 100, 200. They pile up in the tray, overflow onto the floor, roll across the linoleum in all directions, and with each coin that falls, the voice returns. I just need one more chance. Not from a speaker anymore, from everywhere, from the walls, from the machines, from the air itself. Tom's voice, begging and desperate, filling the laundromat like a physical presence. Tom runs for the door. His foot hits a rolling quarter, and he slips, goes down hard on one knee. Pain shoots through his leg, but he doesn't stop, just scrambles up and lunges for the door. Gets his hand on the handle, pulls. The door doesn't open. Tom pulls harder. The door rattles in its frame but stays closed. He can see outside, the parking lot, his car, the rain falling in sheets, but he can't get to it. Behind him, the change machine continues its dispensation. Quarters fall and fall and fall, and his voice echoes with each one. I just need one more chance. I just need one more chance. I just need one more chance. Tom pounds on the glass door. Help! His voice cracks. Somebody help me! But the strip mall is empty. The other businesses are dark. There's no one to hear him except the machines. He turns back to the change machine. Quarters are everywhere now, covering the floor in a silver carpet. The return tray keeps breathing them out, inexhaustible. And in the scratched glass front of the machine, Tom sees movement. His reflection isn't synced anymore. It's doing its own thing, reaching into its pocket, pulling out an imaginary coin, feeding it into the slot. Over and over, the same motion, repeated with mechanical precision, and each time the reflection feeds the imaginary coin, a real quarter falls from the machine. Tom understands with sudden, terrible clarity. The machine is going to keep this up until he feeds it what it really wants. Not money, something else. He digs in his pockets frantically, finds change, a handful of quarters mixed with dimes and nickels. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do with them, doesn't know the rules. He just knows he needs to make it stop. He grabs a quarter and tries to feed it into the coin slot. The slot is too hot to touch. His fingers blister on contact and he yanks his hand back with a yelp. The quarter falls to the floor, joins the hundreds of others. I just need one more chance. The voice is different now. Still his voice, but degraded somehow, like it's been copied and recopied until the fidelity is gone. It sounds desperate and mechanical at the same time, inhuman in its precision. Tom sinks to the floor, sits there surrounded by quarters. His knee throbs where he fell. His fingers throb where they touch the hot metal. The machines around him hum and breathe and pulse, and his voice keeps echoing, keeps begging for something he can't even name anymore. Hours pass. Tom tries the door every few minutes, but it won't open. He tries breaking the windows, but his fists just bounce off the glass like it's made of something harder than glass should be. He tries his phone again, but there's no signal, just a screen full of static. The quarters keep falling. His voice keeps echoing. And slowly, as the night wears on, Tom starts to understand what the machine is doing. It's not punishing him. It's not trapping him. It's giving him exactly what he asked for. One more chance. Over and over. An infinite loop of chances, each one identical to the last, each one reducing his request to currency that can be counted and dispensed and spent. He wanted one more chance, and the machine is making him pay for it, making him hear it, making him understand that some needs, when spoken aloud to things that shouldn't listen, become transactions that never end. By the time the sun rises, Tom is hoarse from screaming. The quarters have stopped falling, but they're everywhere. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, piled up against the walls like drifts of metal snow. His voice still echoes from the machines, but it's quieter now, almost background noise. The door clicks. Tom's head snaps up. The lock is released. He doesn't think about it. Just scrambles to his feet and lunges for the door. This time it opens. He stumbles out into the morning light, into the rain that's turned to drizzle, into the parking lot that looks exactly the same as it did when he arrived. His car is still there. He gets in, starts the engine, drives away without looking back. His hands are shaking so badly he can barely hold the wheel. In the rearview mirror, he catches a glimpse of the laundromat. The lights are still on. Through the windows, he can see the change machine on the wall and covering the floor beneath it, glinting in the fluorescent light thousands and thousands of quarters. And faintly, so faintly he might be imagining it, he can still hear his own voice. I just need one more chance. The laundromat continues. People come and go. Some follow the rules, and some don't. Some walk away with clean clothes and a lighter feeling in their chest. Some walk away changed in ways they don't understand until later. And in the machines, in the change machines and vending machines, in the coin slots and return flaps, something small and patient continues to listen. Bell tither, the regulars call it. The thing that feeds on the moment when you almost say what you really want but swallow it instead. The thing that loves one more chance the way a slot loves a coin. It doesn't take money. It takes the words you shouldn't speak to machines that listen. It takes your requests and replays them until they sound like sentences you can't stop paying for. In the neon rain, in the fluorescent glow, in the late night spaces where people drift when they're too tired to pretend anymore, Bell tither waits. It knows you'll come eventually. Everyone does. Sooner or later. Everyone has something they're carrying, some need they haven't named, some plea they're holding like loose change. And when you arrive, when you feed your bill into the slot and wait for the coins to fall, Bell tither will be there, listening, hungry, patient as metal, old as the first machine that learned to take payment and dispense comfort. Just remember the rules. Place your coin on top. Keep your mouth closed. Name your real need without bargaining. Or don't. Bell tither doesn't mind either way. It's been fed on chances for longer than you've been alive. It can wait for yours too. 2 months pass. The laundromat gets a new sign. The middle letters stop flickering. And now it says wash in steady, reliable neon. But the change machine stays the same. Same scratched glass, same worn casing, same coin slot that sometimes feels warm when it shouldn't. A teenager named Maya Chen comes in on a Tuesday night. She's 16, wearing a school hoodie and carrying a backpack full of textbooks she hasn't opened. She's here because her mother sent her to wash a load of towels. But really she's here because her house feels too small and too loud and she needed an excuse to leave. She loads the towels into a washer, realises she forgot to bring quarters from home, walks to the change machine, feeds in a $10 bill. The machine takes it, pauses. The fluorescent lights flicker and Maya glances up automatically. When she looks back down, the lights seem softer and the return tray is moving, opening, closing, opening again, like something breathing. Maya takes a step back. She's heard stories. Kids at school talk about this place, about machines that act strange and things that watch from inside coin slots. She'd dismissed it as bullshit, the kind of urban legend people tell to make boring places interesting. But now, standing here with the return tray breathing at her, and the lights dimmed like someone's turned down a dial, she's not so sure. Inside the machine, something clinks. 1 note, 2 notes, 3. Maya's heart beats in her throat, and the clinks match it exactly. She thinks about running. But she needs those quarters. $10 is all the money she has until Friday, and if she doesn't wash these towels, her mother will be angry, and there will be another fight, and Maya is so tired of fighting. In the scratched glass, her reflection stares back at her, and then, while Maya stands completely still, the reflection moves. It reaches into a pocket Maya isn't reaching into and pulls out a coin that isn't there, holds it up, feeds it into the slot with careful certainty. Maya watches this happen, watches her own face in the glass, calm and purposeful, completing an action she's not taking. And she understands, suddenly and completely, that this is a choice. The machine is showing her a choice. She remembers a conversation she overheard last week. 2 women in the bathroom at school talking in low voices while they touched up their makeup. "My cousin used the change machine at that laundromat on Morrison Street," one of them had said. "Said it started acting weird, breathing or something. It's creepy as hell. She said there's a rule. If it starts breathing, you have to put a coin on top and keep your mouth shut. Just think about what you need, but don't say it out loud. Don't bargain with it. What happens if you do?" She wouldn't say. Just said she knew someone who did and now he can't stop hearing his own voice. Maya had rolled her eyes at the time, but now, with her reflection moving independently and the machine breathing at her and the clinks matching her heartbeat, she thinks maybe there are things in the world that don't care whether you believe in them or not. She digs into her pocket and finds change. 3 quarters, a nickel, 2 pennies. She picks the oldest quarter, she doesn't know why it matters, but it feels like it does, and reaches up. Places it on top of the machine, in the centre of the flat metal surface. The coin sits there, small, real, refusing the slot. Maya closes her mouth, presses her lips together hard enough to feel her teeth behind them, and she thinks about what she really needs. Not quarters, not clean towels, not even peace and quiet, though that's what she came here for. I need to stop being afraid of my mother, she thinks. I need to believe I can survive her anger without breaking. I need to know that her moods aren't my responsibility. The thought is so clear and so true that it hurts. Maya has never let herself think it that directly before, has never named the fear that sits in her chest every time she hears her mother's voice rise, every time she sees her mother's face tighten into that expression that means someone's about to get hurt with words. She lets the truth sit there, doesn't try to soften it or qualify it, just lets it be real. The warmth in the coin slot fades. The machine's hum changes pitch, drops to something normal. The return tray closes gently and stays closed for 3 heartbeats. Then it opens and quarters fall. Maya counts them. 40. $10 in quarters, exactly what she put in. The coins are cold and ordinary and they sound right when they hit metal. She scoops them up. Her hands are steadier than she expected. The quarter on top of the machine stays where it is, and she doesn't take it back. The fluorescent lights brighten. The laundromat snaps into focus. Real and normal and exactly what it should be. Maya loads quarters into the washer, starts the cycle, sits down in one of the plastic chairs to wait. Her phone buzzes. A text from her mother. "When are you coming home?" Maya looks at it for a long moment. Then she types back, "When the laundry is done." "I'll be a while." She doesn't apologise, doesn't explain, just states a fact, and hits send. The washer churns, the dryers hum. Outside, the rain has started again, turning the parking lot into a mirror of neon. Maya closes her eyes and listens to the machines, and for the first time in weeks, she feels like she can breathe all the way down, but there are others who come to the laundromat, and not all of them leave so easily. A man named Robert Kim arrives on a Friday night 2 weeks after Maya. He's in his 50s, wearing a suit that's seen better days, carrying a gym bag full of clothes that smell like cigarette smoke and failure. He lost his job 3 months ago, lost his apartment 2 months ago, has been sleeping in his car and using the gym shower and trying to maintain the appearance of someone who has their shit together. He needs to wash his interview clothes, has another interview Monday morning. This one might be different, this one might work out. He just needs to look presentable, just needs one more chance to prove he's still valuable, still worth hiring. He feeds a 20 into the change machine. The machine takes it. The lights flicker. The return tray starts breathing. Robert doesn't notice at first. He's thinking about the interview, running through his prepared answers, trying to remember if he should mention the gap in his resume or pretend it doesn't exist. By the time he realises something's wrong, it's too late. The clinks start. His reflection moves independently. The return tray breathes warm air that smells like blood and metal, and Robert feels the thought rising. I just need one more chance. He doesn't know the rules, doesn't know about the coin on top, about keeping his mouth shut. He's too tired and too desperate and too defeated to navigate invisible rules. "Please," Robert says to the machine, "I just need one more chance, just one more interview that goes well. Please." The machine accepts his words. The coin slot warms, welcoming. The clinks become eager, and the return tray opens, and instead of quarters, it dispenses Robert's voice. "I just need one more chance." Over and over, again and again. Until the words don't sound like a plea anymore. They sound like a curse, a sentence he can't stop serving. Robert tries to run, but the door won't open. Tries to break the windows, but they won't break. Sits down on the floor, surrounded by quarters that keep falling from the machine, thousands of them, while his own voice echoes through the laundromat and the hours stretch into something that feels like forever. By the time the sun comes up and the door finally unlocks, Robert is different, quieter. His eyes have a distant quality, like he's listening to something no one else can hear. He gets in his car and drives to a motel, pays for a room with some of the quarters he carried out in his pockets, and sits on the bed staring at the wall. On Monday, he doesn't go to the interview. He never goes to another interview. Because every time he thinks about trying again, he hears his own voice in his head, repeating the same plea with mechanical precision, and he knows that some chances, once spoken to the wrong listener, become debts you can never finish paying. The laundromat exists. The machines run. Beltither waits. A woman named Sandra Torres comes in on a Sunday morning 3 weeks after Robert. She's pregnant, 7 months along, belly round and heavy. And she's here because her water heater broke and she can't afford to fix it until payday. She needs to wash her work uniforms, needs to be presentable for her shifts this week, just needs things to work out a little longer. She feeds a 10 into the change machine, the lights flicker, the return tray breathes, but Sandra knows the stories. Her grandmother told her about things that listen, about offerings that aren't payments, about the importance of naming truth without condition. Sandra grew up with rules for avoiding bad luck, for appeasing things that shouldn't exist but do anyway, so when the machine starts breathing and the clinks match her heartbeat, Sandra doesn't panic. She reaches into her purse and finds a quarter, places it on top of the machine, closes her mouth, and silently, honestly, without bargaining, she names her real need. I need to trust that I can do this, that I can be a mother even though I'm scared, that being afraid doesn't mean I'll fail. The truth settles in her chest, raw and simple. The machine hums, accepts it, releases her. Quarters fall. Sandra takes them, takes a deep breath and starts her wash. By the time she leaves, the sun is higher in the sky and her uniforms are clean and folded, and she feels steadier than she has in weeks. Not fixed, not transformed, just a little more capable of carrying what she needs to carry. And the pattern continues. Some people follow the rules, some don't. Some leave with clean clothes and quiet epiphanies. Some leave with their own voices echoing in their heads, a loop they'll hear for the rest of their lives. The laundromat doesn't judge. It just is. A liminal space where people drift when they're too tired to pretend, where machines hum and water churns and detergent covers the smell of everything that's harder to wash away. And in the machines, particularly in the change machine with its scratched glass and worn casing, Bell Tither waits. It feeds on hesitation, on the moment when you almost say what you really want but swallow it instead. It loves the phrase, "one more chance," the way collectors love rare coins. It takes your requests and turns them into currency, makes you pay to hear yourself beg. But it also teaches, in its way, teaches that some needs, when named honestly without bargaining, lose their power to hurt you. Teaches that the difference between a plea and a prayer is whether you're trying to make a deal. Teaches that machines listen, and what you say to them matters. On a Thursday night, 6 months after Tom Delacroix stumbled out into the dawnlight with his pockets full of quarters and his voice still echoing in his ears, a young man named David Park pulls into the parking lot. He's 19, flunking out of college, hasn't told his parents yet. He's here because he spilled coffee on his only clean shirt and has a meeting with his advisor tomorrow, and he needs to look like someone who has their life together. The laundromat is nearly empty. One old man reading a newspaper near the back, the machines humming their familiar hum. David loads his shirt into a washer, realises he needs quarters, walks to the change machine. He's about to feed in a 20 when he notices something. On top of the machine, placed carefully in the centre of the metal surface, is a quarter. It's old. The date is worn almost smooth, and it sits there like it's been waiting. David stares at it. He's heard stories about this place. Upperclassmen talk about it at parties, swapping urban legends about machines that breathe and reflections that move on their own. He'd always assumed it was bullshit, the kind of thing people make up to scare freshmen. But something about that quarter sitting there alone on top of the machine makes him pause. He reaches out and touches it. The metal is warm, not hot, just warm enough to feel like it's been held recently, like someone left it there on purpose, like it means something. David pulls his hand back, looks at the change machine, looks at the quarter, and makes a decision. He pulls out his wallet and counts his cash. $37. Not enough for much, but enough. He takes out a 20, folds it, puts it back in his wallet. Then he takes out $1, feeds it into the change machine instead. The machine accepts it without incident. No flickering lights, no breathing return tray, just a simple mechanical process. 4 quarters fall into the tray with ordinary metallic sounds. David scoops them up, feeds them into the washer, starts his cycle. As he walks away, he glances back at the change machine. The quarter is still on top of it, waiting for whoever needs it next. David doesn't know why he changed his behaviour, doesn't know why he felt the need to be cautious, to take less than he wanted. Just knows that some instinct, some warning he couldn't name, told him to be careful with machines that hold offerings on their surfaces. He sits down in a plastic chair and waits for his shirt to wash. The old man near the back turns a page in his newspaper. The dryers spin. Outside, rain starts to fall. turning the parking lot into a mirror of neon. David pulls out his phone, scrolls through messages he hasn't answered, thinks about the meeting tomorrow with his advisor, thinks about what he's going to say when they ask why his grades have dropped, thinks about the truth he's been avoiding, that he's not sure college is right for him, that he's not sure what he wants, that he's terrified of disappointing his parents, but equally terrified of spending 4 more years pretending to be someone he's not. The washer buzzes. David transfers his shirt to a dryer, feeds it more quarters, sits back down. The old man folds his newspaper, stands up with careful slowness, and walks toward the door. As he passes David, he pauses. "Good choice," the old man says quietly. David looks up. "What?" But the old man is already walking away, pushing through the door out into the rain. David watches him go, confused. Good choice about what? About using the dryer? About washing his shirt? He looks back at the change machine. The quarter is still there, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Good choice, the old man had said. David thinks about the $20 in his wallet, about feeding it into the machine, about what might have happened if he'd asked for more than he needed, if he'd approached the machine with demands instead of caution. He'll never know for sure. But sitting there in the warm laundromat with his shirt tumbling in the dryer and the rain falling outside, David feels like he dodged something. Feels like he made a choice he didn't know he was making and somehow made the right one. The dryer buzzes. David pulls out his shirt, warm and clean and smelling like generic detergent. He folds it carefully, puts it in his backpack, looks one more time at the change machine. The quarter is still there, still waiting. David doesn't know who left it or why, but he understands now that it's not just decoration. It's a warning, a reminder, a sign that says, be careful what you ask for. Be careful what you say out loud. Be careful with machines that listen. David leaves the laundromat and walks to his car. Gets in, starts the engine. Sits there for a moment with the heat running and the rain drumming on the roof. Tomorrow he'll meet with his advisor. He'll tell the truth, that he's struggling, that he's not sure this is the right path, that he needs help figuring out what comes next. Not one more chance. Not a plea for something he can't name, just honesty, simple and unqualified. He puts the car in gear and drives home through the rain. In the rearview mirror, the laundromat grows smaller and smaller until it's just another lit window in a dark strip mall. But the image of that quarter stays with him, small and warm and waiting on top of a machine that breathes when it shouldn't, in a place where people go when they're too tired to pretend anymore. The laundromat continues. The machines run. Beltither waits, patient as metal, old as the first coin that ever fell through a slot. It doesn't take money. It takes the moment when you almost say what you really want but swallow it instead. It takes one more chance and turns it into currency, makes you pay to hear yourself beg. But it also offers a choice. Follow the rules. Place your coin on top, keep your mouth closed, name your truth without bargaining, and the machines will give you what you came for. Quarters and clean clothes and the quiet certainty that honesty, when spoken to the right listener, can be its own form of freedom. Break the rules, and the machines will give you something else entirely. They'll give you exactly what you asked for over and over until the words stop sounding like hope and start sounding like a trap you built yourself. In the neon rain, in the fluorescent glow, in the late-night spaces where exhaustion strips away pretense, Beltither listens. It knows you'll come eventually. Everyone does. Everyone carries something. Some need they haven't named, some plea they're holding like loose change. And when you arrive, when you stand in front of a machine that breathes and clinks and watches you with glass that reflects things that haven't happened yet, you'll have a choice. You can follow the rules, or you can bargain. Beltither doesn't care which you choose. It's been fed on chances for longer than anyone remembers. It can wait for yours too. Just remember, in the strip mall at the edge of town, in the laundromat that's always open, the change machine takes more than bills. It takes requests. And what it returns, quarters or voices, relief or repetition, depends entirely on what you're willing to pay for and how you ask. The quarter on top of the machine waits. The coin slot breathes. The return tray opens and closes like lungs remembering rhythm. And somewhere inside the metal and wires and mechanisms that shouldn't be conscious but are, Beltither hunches and listens and feeds on the space between what you want and what you say, between asking and begging, between need and bargain. It doesn't judge, it just is. And it will be there, waiting, the next time you need change and the night is too quiet and you're too tired to guard your words. Just remember the rules. Place your coin on top, keep your mouth closed. Name your real need without bargaining. or don't. Beltither doesn't mind either way. The next story is about to begin. Please relax and enjoy.